Well, welcome. We're at Wisdom's Chats. So it's Monday morning, bright and breezy. Sun here in South Africa, a little sun we're just getting Jasper on board now and Trevor. So better late than never. Happy to have them here. Welcome. Hi, Jasper. Hi, Trevor. Welcome. We're getting going. And Edward, the ball is going to go straight into your court. You hit the ball to me. I'm going to hit it straight back to you. So the topic for today is honesty the best policy? What a good question. Edward, please, fire away.
Yeah, this all arose because of something that happened in the chat on Friday. Lee was talking about decluttering, and I happen to know that, because she told me that Lee's got about 6,000 unopened emails in her spam box, which horrifies me because that uses up server space, which causes greenhouse gases. And if you multiply Lee by 6 billion people, that's an awful lot of emails loafing about. And in the chat, during the session, she was talking about decluttering. And in the chat, I said, have you decluttered your spam box? And Lee said something like, talk about hitting me in the stomach. And I thought, well, perhaps that was a bit brutal. And maybe sometimes building rapport is about not quite telling the truth. So honesty isn't quite the best policy. So rather than saying to someone, you're a complete idiot, it might be best to say, well, yeah, I can see what you mean by that, but I'm sure you're not totally correct. But generally speaking, I think honesty is the best policy, unless the question is, does my bum look big in this? In which case, you better lie. But there have been times when lying was the best thing to do. And the first time I came across this was when I was about 15. My dad went to hospital. He was seriously ill, and mum come home from hospital one night and said, I want to talk to you, Edward. And my dad was dying from cancer. And she said, we aren't going to tell him because he'll worry. And I don't want him to worry. So we lied to my dad, and he never knew he was dying until maybe the day before he died. And I think that was the right thing to do. It was hard for me, and it was hard for my mum. We never told my sister because we didn't think she could perpetuate the lie. But I think there was a situation where honesty wasn't the best policy. And many, many years later, I came to a situation where I had to debate whether honesty was the best policy, because someone I worked with was having a long-standing affair. She'd had the affair for 10 years before she started working with me. And she had a husband and a lover. And because of her job, she traveled a lot. And she was able to get away with things like going on holiday with her lover. And she loved her husband and she loved her lover. She said she couldn't possibly marry the lover and she couldn't possibly spend all her time with the husband. And she loved both men dearly. And it put me in a quandary because I'm quite conventional. I believe in infidelity and all that sort of stuff. Now, I knew both the men. I used to meet them quite regularly. And of course, it put me in a position where I could either tell the truth and perhaps bring down this house of cards, or I could lie. And what did I do? Because was it up to me to destroy what seemed to be working because I had morals, or what I had thought had morals? So in the end, I perpetuated the lie. I used to try and avoid meeting them, mind you, but I actually met them once both the guys in the same room. It was cringeworthy, but it was one of those things where I didn't think it was my place to tell the brutal truth because it would have destroyed everything. And it seemed to work. You know, she spent hours searching for the perfect gift for her husband, and she'd spent hours finding the perfect gift for her lover. And it just staggered me that this could go on. So yeah, sometimes it's not our place to be honest, perhaps. But I think also at other times, particularly when you're giving bad news, you have to be honest, because otherwise people will hang on to that little tiny bit of hope. If you kind of give a confused message and there's some kind of hope there, they'll hang on to it when it's not even there. So, you know, if you're going to make someone redundant, tell them they're losing their job. Don't waffle. If someone's got a serious problem, tell them, don't waffle, because they'll grab whatever there is. And on that thing, I was involved in a very complicit lie during Comrades. My last Comrades, I was injured. I should never have started, and I was never going to finish. And I'm running along at the back of the field, and I'm running with a few other people, and we're all telling ourselves that we can do it. And the crowd, they're willing us on, saying you can do it. It was patently obvious we couldn't, because we were never going to make the cutoff. But we kept that lie going, and the crowd kept that lie going until we didn't make the cutoff, because I think it was important to our psyche, our self-worth, our whatever it was, not to admit that we weren't going to make it. We had to try and try and try and keep trying until there was absolutely no hope, and we'd reached the cutoff. And the crowd were the same. They were cheering us on and saying, go on, you can do it, you can do it. Everyone complicit in a lie, just so we'd feel good about ourselves. So yeah, I think it's a very complex question, but generally speaking, I think honesty is the best way to go. And Trevor's lost his moral compass, apparently. I didn't know he had one in the first place. I think he just followed the money.
Well, on that note, Trevor, what is your response? So please go ahead. Honesty is the best policy, or what?
I'm shattered. I really adopted Ed as my moral compass. I thought I'd discovered just some super intelligence who understands the world like I've never understood it. So now I'm gone. I'm flummoxed. I don't know what to say. But what a question, especially related to the weekend we've just had here in South Africa. And that is with the pursuing of the ex-president and us being under lockdown, and us wanting to understand, who do we believe, who do we trust? And I'm busy just compiling a graphic for our next global leadership masterclass, because, well, let me tell you, the graphic's going to have 3 words on it: fact, fiction, or fantasy. What sort of world are we living in at the moment? And I think what Ed has actually brought up is this concept of lying, white lie. Now, is that discrimination? Or just being totally untruthful and fabrication. Man, it's a difficult one. I've always lived with the reputation of being brutally honest, and it's a tough reputation to have, and that's because I've just said, hey, stuff it. You know what? The more you hide blooming secrets, and the longer you hide them, when they actually come out, they tend to hurt even more than if you expose them right in the beginning. And then in terms of Ed's conundrum of these 2 gents, what was going through my head was, how did he know the whole blooming story of this woman or what she was doing with the two gents? Did she confide in Ed? And was she psychologically looking for Ed to actually just spill the beans that she couldn't spill, sort of scenario? And this comes down to one of my great mates, and I suppose I better not go down too deep, and involved in sports and all that sort of thing, had the same situation. I happened to be up here in Johannesburg, and I never knew what was going down in this world down in Durban, but it turned out that these guys were all involved in a den of iniquity, and people knew each other, and they were living in the same houses, and no one told anyone else, and it just completely broke all channels of trust between these guys for over 50 years. And they still rue these things to this day. So brutal honesty. And then Ed threw me a curve ball. And you know, I was starting to turn around. I lost all respect for Ed until he actually turned around and said, "Do you tell your wife that her bottom is getting a little bit bigger than anything?" And then I understood the dilemma of the curveball that he actually threw. Non-brutal honesty. Yeah. So are there big truths and big lies and small lies and white lies and those sort of things? I don't know. You know what? This weekend, as I'm writing this thing, fact, fiction, or fantasy, it is such a confusing world at the moment, and Ed's just made me even more confused.
Sure, Trevor. All kinds of shades of grey.
Oh, now 50 of them. Yeah. Now we're going to go down a different direction, are we? Yeah. Okay.
No, it was the same direction, right?
All right.
Jesper, I mean, please rescue us.
No, I think the morning, there's no rescue on this topic because it is stated as a dilemma, and it stays a dilemma, and we're just unpacking the dilemma. So my premise is like Trevor. It's honesty is the best policy, but then I also understand the reality. We as parents, and I want to take it on a slightly different tack, but we know that there are no Easter bunnies. They've never existed. Yet we keep up the lie, and as grandparents, I play in that. Sorry, I shocked Ed and Trevor there, but we keep perpetuating. But then the question is it a lie? Because then every fiction book, every movie that we watch, you know, we can go overboard and say, because it's not the truth, therefore there's no place for fiction books and for good stories. And I'm really amazed at the quality of stories that people dream up and you know, they portray in these books and TV series and stuff like that. So maybe I want to say, although it's not based on truth, it's not a lie. Good story. So what do we say on that one? But then I'm coming back to the dilemma of Edward running with his mates, and I know myself that I've learned over the years in dealing with people. Truth is definitely the best policy, but there's also a timing factor, and I want to then call it the readiness for truth. So how do you unpack the truth for someone so you can spill a whole car of beans and destroy that person and destroy the situation, or to the extent that that person opens up to you and trusts you, you share with him the truth, but in bite sizes, with the understanding of, I don't want to destroy you, so I'm not giving you the full facts. And I know I'm it's part of my makeup now when I deal with people that as they ask me about a certain topic, then in my mind I'm already racing to all the consequences of how this thing will unfold if I now tell them my honest thing here in my heart. So so then you almost unpack the truth slowly so that you can almost control the fallout that will happen. This little chappie, as he grew up, he was just one of these extreme honest people. He said what he sees, and it worried his mom because they were invited over to another parents with a new baby, and this baby was born with no ears. You know, the parents was now concerned. You can't say the baby doesn't have ears. So all the way up to visiting the family, they primed this baby, this little boy, not to say, listen, the baby doesn't have ears, but please don't say the baby doesn't have ears. You know, mother and father are a little bit sad about the whole thing. And when he got to the place, he said, can I see the baby now? Everybody's panicking. And he looked at the baby and he says, can he see well? They say, yes. Oh, that's good, because he will never be able to wear glasses. So, so, you know, there's a way to tell the truth. So I think with that, I'll leave it there and let's see where the discussion takes us.
Thanks, Jasper. That's a great story to end off with. Telling the truth with tact. Tabiso, please tell us, what is your take? And we'll turn off our video so that we can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. Reading Jung and Freud has actually taught me that, you know, we are all deceitful, and, you know, a learned response, and we do it subconsciously and sometimes unconsciously, you know. We are not linear creatures, and our behaviors change depending on the people we meet, you know. We create personas and present them as masks so that we can be well perceived and liked, you know. Basically, we are all just actors, you know, and we need to play our roles, because if we don't, isolation is a very big possibility, you know. That's not good, because as humans, I think that we need each other, you know. We are social creatures. We also like to tell these white lies every day, you know. What are you doing today? I'm good, thanks, you know. You can't really say horrible and I hate my life and I want to die, you know, because we actually learned that isolate us from people, you know, and that's not what we want, you know. We want to be impressionable and well-liked. This is a psychological urge, you know. Abraham Maslow actually explores this with his hierarchy of needs pyramid, you know. I just think that deception is everywhere in nature, you know. Like predators hide in long grass their prey, and, you know, little babies learn to fake a cry to get the attention of mommy, you know. Deception is just an inherent part of nature, you know. Everyone is just a liar, you know. There is no exception to this. But still, I say that if you are conscious about it, you know, just tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Don't lie, you know. Consciously lying is bad, you know. It is a sin, and it actually leads to hell. You know, because if you are caught in your lie, then it actually reduces respect and things will never be the same again, you know. Delicate thing, you know. paper, once scrambled, will never be the same again, you know. The creases will always be there. It increases your worth and actually tarnishes your image, you know. No one wants to be with someone they don't trust. Absolutely no one, you know, because it actually leads to paranoia and a life of hell, you know. So I just think that you should always tell the truth, or just don't lie, you know. Just be a person of integrity and good values, you know, because this actually creates order and you won't have to remember. And I think that honest, you know, you will attract genuine people to you and you will be happier, you know. So yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. Honesty is the best policy, you know, unless if you are a storyteller, because making up stories, you know, is like your profession, and that's how you earn your bread and butter. But it's not really lying because you're a storyteller, you know. So I think I'll just leave it there. So thank you, Lee.
To be so glad that we have our resident philosopher on board, and that you're able to bring Freud and Jung and Abraham Maslow and Tabiso's homespun philosophy all woven together. we don't know what we'd do without you. So thank you for that. So Trevor, go ahead.
You know how to tell when someone's lying?
How, Trevor?
Their lips are moving.
Yes, but no, it's deflection. So what I want to do is just deflect to another topic because this one's getting too deep. Okay, you brought up at the beginning of the discussion, someone brought up minimalism, and I happened to actually get into watching in the background this thing on Netflix. I don't know if anyone's watched it. Very interesting. And then I thought to myself, okay, what are people in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, what are they doing in this current world? Because they tend to be living in total happiness. So I thought, okay, let me search something about Sweden. And I discovered a couple that actually bought a school bus in America. And the title of their thing, I'm trying to remember it now, Expedition Happiness, also on Netflix. And that kept us engrossed. As we were eating breakfast early on Sunday, we had this Expedition Happiness of this couple who'd got the school bus and had driven through Canada, Alaska, back through America into Mexico. And it was the most amazing thing. This young couple on their search for happiness and how idealistic it all looked. So I'm not going to spoil the end of this documentary for you, but I thought in line with what we've been talking about, these two Netflix documentaries were phenomenal. I'm hooked on these documentaries. So whenever I can get them in the background and listen to them, and it's amazing stuff. And I keep asking myself, now hang on a moment, how does this young couple afford to get a bus? I could just imagine if Ed and I were single and the odd couple and we actually met up together, we'd probably go and buy a bus and go and tour around the world. He could have his running shoes. I would get a pedal ski on top of the blooming thing because I think somewhere along the line we're nomads and adventurers. But really going to have a look at them. I loved the episode of, what did I call it? Expedition Happiness. Going to have a look at that. In fact, just before I opened up, I tried to look at their website because they had it on their bus and the website seems to have been taken down, but they got a Facebook site which seems to have 3 million, or it could be 30 million views on their Facebook site, and they did this in 2017, I think. Well worth having a look at. How's that for deflection? It's got nothing to do about whether I'm going to talk the truth or not.
Edward, on that note, please go ahead.
It just occurred to me that very often we're attracted to the outliers. So, you know, here's two people doing something really strange, which we find interesting, and it's always the outliers that we kind of concentrate on, isn't it? You know, the Elon Musks, he's an outlier. So why is it that we always focus on outliers and find them interesting, whereas most of us exist in the middle, don't we? If you think about the bell curve. And it just struck me when Trevor was talking then, why is it we always focus on the outliers? Just to throw in and muddy the waters, because I didn't know we talked about minimalism earlier on. I thought we talked about the truth. I thought minimalism was Friday.
Deflection, Ed, deflection, you're deflecting. Liar. Yep.
Yeah, so definitely. So it's a continuum. Wisdom's Chats is just a continuum. What we were talking about Friday can be brought into today, and it's one conversation stimulates the next conversation, and so on. So so I don't even know how to sort of bring it back to honesty is the best policy after that, because expedition happiness and what I was going to talk about seems like, oh, bowls apart. But let me throw my 2 cents within anyway. And that's, so it seems to me there's a difference between lies and secrets and tact and, you know, and authentic, you know, being authentic, but being rude in the name of being authentic. And so how can you be honest and kind at the same time? I think that's really what we're aiming for, is, and I've realized in 34 years of marriage that, and as I say, I'm always a slow learner. So I've realized that I don't actually have to say everything that's on my mind, that's not, I thought that was being honest. What I've realized is that your truth is not necessarily the other person's truth, and that you can be wrong. You can be wrong. What you are seeing and the story that you are telling yourself that you think is the truth can be completely off track. And so I've learned to, before I dive in and say this is wrong and that's wrong, maybe just to step back a bit and say, what am I seeing all the angles? What other possibilities are there that could be a different interpretation of this event? So I think that's one aspect of it. I think that secrets are very dangerous. And in our family, we had an experience where my sister fell pregnant before she was married. She didn't tell anybody, went to the UK, was going to have the baby adopted. And when the baby was born, she couldn't let go of this baby. And so she hadn't told even the dad. And so with the 2-day-old baby, contacted the dad and said, you're a father, who then drove to my parents to say, you are grandparents. And the fact that she, from a close, we saw ourselves as a close-knit family, that she felt she couldn't share this knowledge with us, this information, and kept the secret for such a long time. And it took a long time for our family to come around to that. That little girl is now 30 and has a little girl of her own. And so all things end well. I grew up in a little village, and gossip, secrets, talk about who's married to who and having an affair with who and whose child is now this person's child. And I swore, even at that age, I was never going to live in a village again. I just don't want to know that stuff. Let me live in the city and everybody lives their own lives. So I don't have to be bombarded with other people's secrets. Too much information for me. So I think that's all bits and pieces of what I've grabbed from everything else that everybody else was saying. And but yes, I do, to be so at the end of the day, it is about being a person of integrity, isn't it? So how can you live with integrity? And I think that's where honesty is the best policy. Right. Yes, no secrets. Pastor's wife. Oh, and so that's another interesting thing, is that there's a difference between secrets that are passed on like gossip, or that are held in a way that breaks down family, and there's a difference between confidentiality. So I find confidentiality is something that I absolutely, it's written into my absolute being, that if somebody tells me something in confidence, I don't even tell my husband. I don't. It remains with me. It's not my story to tell. And so, yeah, those things are things that relate to being a person of integrity in my mind. So thank you. We come to the end of our Wisdom's Chats today. Tomorrow is Personal Mastery. Tuesdays are Personal Mastery days. We follow the program that Wisdom's Chats has, Wisdom's has in terms of personal mastery. And we're following a step-by-step program that looks at attitude as the first stepping stone in terms of personal mastery. And the question, or really the phrase, is you are what you think. Let me get it right so that I'm not saying it correctly. I'm just got it up here if I can find it. Sorry, I had it in my mind and then it went out. We become that which we think about most. We become that which we think about most. That is the core principle of the first section of attitude. We become that which we think about most. So let's talk about that tomorrow, and look forward to seeing you then. Bye, everyone.
Cherry bye.